of Joshua, chapter 1, and also the book of Judges, chapter 1. Joshua 1, Judges 1. Read the first verse in each of these. Joshua 1, verse 1. Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying. And now over the book of Judges, chapter 1, verse 1. Now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, Who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to fight against them? Now notice the first two words of Joshua 1, verse 1. Now after. Notice the first two words of Judges 1:1. Now after. So both the books of Joshua and Judges begin with these two words. Now after. Now after. And we want to center our thoughts this morning around those two words. Now after. Right now, each one of us are in now after. We are experiencing right now after. We've been there before, and we've experienced it countless times. Now after. And that continues throughout life. Now after. And that's our subject this morning. Now after. Now after. The first thing we want to do is consider these two words. The Hebrew word translated now is the word atah. It means what we know it to mean at that time. It means the present time. Now. It means the present moment. The present circumstances. Now. The word after is the Hebrew word akar, meaning afterward. That which follows. Follows now. It's that which follows. It's what follows an event. It's also what leads to the next event. So in our text verses, now after, what is the event? Well, in Joshua 1 and verse 1, it's the death of Moses. Now after the death of Moses. In Judges 1:1, the event is the death of Joshua. Now after the death of Joshua. So what we read in our text verses is what follows two events of death. Now again, the word after is not only what follows, but it's also what leads to the next now. So it follows an event, and it leads to the next event. So whatever now is, there were other events that preceded it. We've experienced this all through our life. So the words now after are a phrase of time. It explains time. With the word now, speaking of the present, and the word after, speaking of an event in the past. So the words now after, not only are they a phrase of time, they are a connecting phrase to a past event. So it speaks of a sequence of events. That's life. That's what life is. Life is a sequence of events. The events never stop happening. It's always now after, now after, now after. It's Romans 8:28. All things work together. It's just one event after another. Now, one event may be more significant than another, but it's still just one event after another. It's things happening. That's life. When they stop happening, you're dead. Life is no more. So it's just one event, one happening after another. So in our text verses, it is now after, followed by the event that preceded now, which was the death of Moses and the death of Joshua. Now notice that these two events are followed. Notice in Joshua 1, verse 1. Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, and notice what it says, it came to pass. And then in Judges 1 and verse 1, now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass. Simply meaning, and it happened. After this event, this happened. And after that happened, this happened. And so it goes throughout history. So it's after the event mentioned, the death of Joshua, the death of Moses, something else happened. Something else happened. It came to pass. 8 times we read it this way in the Word of God. It came to pass after these things. It's the same way as saying now after it came to pass. Just saying it in a little different form. So it is now after it came to pass, or it came to pass after these things. And that brings us to what? That brings us to now. That brings us to now. That's history. That's our life. It is something happened, and then something else happened, and then something else happened, and then something else happened. That's been going on all through your life. It was happening long before you and I came upon the scene. It goes all the way back to Genesis 1:1, humanly speaking. So the present quickly becomes the past. The present quickly becomes the past. Now notice, in both of our text verses, notice Joshua 1:1, it came to pass that. Judges 1:1, it came to pass that. That's a word that introduces something specific. Something specific. In Joshua 1:1, now after, the after is explained by the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord. It came to pass, and now the now is being explained, that. the Lord. And then what follows is what the Lord did. What did he do? He spoke unto Joshua. In Judges 1:1, it is now after. The after is explained by the death of Joshua. It came to pass, in other words, he's now going to explain what happened next, that the children of Israel, and what follows is what they did. They asked the Lord. Notice, in both cases, following now after and then following that are these two words, the Lord. After that, the Lord. The Lord. Both cases. That's a wonderful truth. No matter what your now after is, there's the Lord. Whatever it is. So here we are, now. Right now. There was an after that preceded our now. And there will be an after proceeding our next now. In other words, something else will happen. Someone says, things are always happening. Well, you ought to be thankful for that. Because once again, when they stop happening, you've got another issue. In other words, there have been innumerable. It came to pass. It came to pass. Leading to our now. You think of all the it came to pass before you and I were even born. Leading to our birth. And then all through our life. Bringing us to now. And then there will be other it came to pass. Again, that's life. We pass from one thing to another. Events continue to happen. Now again, both Joshua and Judges begin with now after. In the bigger picture, Joshua 1:1, now after, and what comes after is Joshua, the book of Joshua. In the bigger picture. The immediate picture is now after the death of Moses. But the big picture is the book of Joshua. And the big picture in Judges 1:1, now after, comes the book of Judges. And these two things, Joshua and Judges, are completely different. They're not the same thing. You see, the book of Joshua, the book of Judges, they're both significant historical accounts of how Israel came into the land of Canaan, God's promised inheritance. But looking at them side by side, they are contrast. There's not much similarity between the two. And what that reveals is that the events of life can be quite different from one second to the next. Consider the book of Joshua. The opening words, now after. That's a connecting phrase. As soon as you see the word after, you ought to immediately ask, after what? After what? In this case, the death of Moses, which was recorded in Deuteronomy chapter 34. In other words, events happened before Moses died. Before Moses died, Israel was in Egyptian bondage. And it would come to pass that Israel would be delivered from Egyptian bondage. And it would come to pass that Israel, in disobedience to God, would lose the meaning of life, and they wandered and they meandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and many things came to pass in those 40 years. And it came to pass that Moses died. Now, after the death of Moses, after Moses died, the world didn't stop. And after you and I die, guess what? The world's not going to stop. Things are going to continue to happen. That's life. That's history. And then you have the book of Joshua. 40 years of wandering in the wilderness have come to an end. And it is now time to cross the Jordan River and enter into the land that God had promised. So now the Israelites will live in houses instead of tents. They will now, instead of moving from place to place and always searching for water and for grass, now they will have streams and springs and wells with plenty of grass for their livestock. It is Deuteronomy 6, 10, and 11. You will have houses that you did not build. You will have vineyards that you did not plant, and so on. And now, after the death of Moses, it came to pass. And you have the book of Joshua, which is in stark contrast to the constant grumbling and disobedience that characterized the Israelites ever since God sent Moses to deliver them from Egypt. The book of Joshua, for the most part, describes a victorious people. But then we come to the book of Judges. And again, the book opens with "now after," a connecting phrase. Connects us to the death of Joshua. His death is recorded in Joshua 24:29. And following the death of Joshua, you come to the book of Judges, which is one of the most tragic books in the Bible. It's also a very apt picture of history. It is a consistent pattern of how the people were unfaithful to God. It shows the failure. The book of Joshua is basically a book of success. But after that, something else happened. There was failure. So the book of Joshua paints a dreadful picture. So after the victorious picture comes a dreadful picture. A picture of rapid decline, both theologically and morally. Now, after the death of Joshua, the people failed. We read in Judges 1, verse 27, verse 28, verse 29, verse 30, 31, 32, 33. It mentions a tribe, and it says they did not drive out. And then it mentions the enemy. That's failure. That's repeated failure. Because God told them, you drive out the enemies. Plain and simple. They didn't do that. In the book of Judges is the consequence of their failure to obey God. Now, after the death of Joshua, and then a terrible cycle is repeated over and over. What was that cycle? They would sin. They would turn away from God. And a foreign nation would overrun and oppress them. God, in His mercy and grace, would send a judge to deliver them, reestablish peace and blessing, and then the pattern would start all over again. The people would soon turn away from God again. We see this throughout our own national history. Only to be conquered and oppressed again. We see it in our own personal history. God would send another judge to deliver them, and the pattern is repeated over and over. And as the story moves on, things get worse and worse and worse. And as you read the book of Judges, you realize that not only have the Israelites failed to drive out the Canaanites, but they became the Canaanites. They became the very nations that they failed to drive out. They copied their lifestyles, and that's why God told them to drive them out. He said, your children will marry their children. And on it goes. You'll learn their ways. Oh, how true. So they began to serve Canaanite gods. And they began to embrace Canaanite morality or immorality. And by the end of the book, things are absolutely disastrous. At the beginning of the book, they're fighting the Canaanites. Though they failed. And they soon find themselves oppressed by the enemies. Oppressed by the enemies they'd already defeated. Things are going backwards. Things are going backwards. And if that's not bad enough, by the end of the book, the Israelites are killing each other rather than the Canaanites. They've gone backwards. So in our text verses, I brought all that up. So in our text verses, now after, it came to pass that. In Joshua, now after, following that, there was conquest. There was living in the reality of the promises of God. But the now after in Judges, there was failure. There was sin. There was defeat. There was bondage. There was decline. So what this tells us is now after can be one of joy. It can be one of victory. It can bring misery and defeat. So let's consider some truths for our now after. We all have them. Now after. Now after. Now after, it came to pass that. Following the word after, you can insert whatever you want. Insert circumstances. Insert your feelings. Whatever. Now after. Let's say now after turmoil, it came to pass there was peace. Or you could look at it the other way. Now after peace, there was turmoil. You can go either way. You can go either way. Now after, insert the word anguish. It came to pass that there was relief. Or you can turn it around. Now after, insert relief, it came to pass that there was anguish. The point is, the next event can be polar opposite to now. To now. After sorrow could be joy. After joy could be sorrow. After affliction, there may be comfort. After comfort, there may be affliction. After struggle could come rest. And after rest could come struggle. And we get in the place of rest. Oh, this is wonderful. This is the way it needs to be all the time. But that's not life. That's not reality. That's not the way it's going to stay. Because different things are always happening. Always happening. After riches could come poverty. After poverty could come riches. After emptiness could come fullness. And after fullness could come emptiness. After the storm there may be a calm. And after the calm there may be a storm. Just goes on and on. After failure could come success. And after success could come failure. We need to realize this. Things change all the time. After disappointment, there could come fulfillment. And after fulfillment, there may be disappointment. Discontent could be followed by contentment. And contentment could be followed by discontent. And on and on and on it goes. Hopelessness could be followed by hope. And a moment of hope can turn into a moment of hopelessness. Things change. After darkness comes light. After light comes darkness. That's true literally. It's true for us as well in life. After weakness may be strength. After strength may be weakness. After uncertainty may be certainty. And after certainty may be uncertainty. Things are always coming to pass. Now after, whatever the event is, it came to pass that. Events are always happening. And the next event is unknown to you and I. We don't know. We make plans based upon what we think will happen, but we don't know. We have no idea. 3 seconds from now, that time's already up. So it didn't happen. You may have a heart attack. 2 minutes from now, you may have a heart attack. We don't know. None of us know what is going to happen next. But notice, now after you have the event, the death of Moses, the death of Joshua, it came to pass that. And then you have the words, not immediately, well you do in Joshua 1:1, the Lord. In Joshua it is, the Lord spake unto Joshua. Now after the death of Moses, the Lord, and He did something. He spoke unto Joshua. And in Judges, it is now after the event is declared, the death of Joshua. The children of Israel did something. They asked, but who did they ask? The Lord. The Lord. So, in both happenings, there is the Lord. And may I say, in all the happenings of life, there is the Lord. And in both cases, it is the Lord in relation to His people. In Joshua 1 verse 1, it is the Lord spake unto Joshua. The Lord did something in relation to Joshua. In Judges 1 verse 1, the children of Israel asked. The children of Israel, God's people, did something. But they did something in relation to who? The Lord. They asked the Lord. This is key to all the happenings of life. Whatever it is, there is the Lord. But not only that, there is the Lord in relation to His people. No matter what it is. 10 minutes from now, something absolutely tragic may come into our lives. Or something absolutely joyous. But regardless, the Lord will be there, and there will be a relation to who He is to us. Now after it came to pass, we must be so careful that we do not become focused upon the now after, that we forget, that we fail to see the Lord. Whatever the now after is, that's not our focus. Our focus is to be the Lord. That'll change your life. There are people who are up and down, emotionally, mentally, because they're always focusing upon the now after rather than the Lord. So we must not lose our focus upon the Lord. Whatever has happened in the past, or is happening right now, or whatever is going to happen, there is the Lord. Everything that has happened in my life, and I don't even know everything that's happened in my life, and you don't even know everything that's happened in your life. But everything that has ever happened in my life, there was the Lord. And there was the Lord in relation to me. And whatever is happening right now, there is the Lord. There is the Lord in relation to me. And whatever is going to happen, there will be the Lord in relation to me. Now after, the Lord. And whatever it is, whatever the now after is, He's the Most High. He is who He is. He is the Almighty One. He's the one who can. He is the sovereign one. He is the one who sits upon the throne. The one who's in control. The one who's fulfilling His purposes. Whatever the now after is, all that is true. The Lord. The Lord. Whatever has happened, there are people who get stuck in what has happened. That's where they've never gotten past that. What a waste of a life. That's where they're stuck. It may have been 50 years ago, but that's where they're stuck. Life is not meant for you and I to get stuck anywhere. Life progresses. Life moves on. And so we are to progress with the happenings of life. And the only way we do that is realizing the Lord. Whatever has happened, whatever is happening, whatever is going to happen, He's known all. And He's been present. Whatever now after is and consists of, and whatever the now after is going to be, He's the faithful one. He's the sufficient one who has the grace, who has the strength that we need. He's the merciful one. He's the unchanging one. He's the miracle worker. He's the restorer. He's the sympathizer. He's the fortress. He's the solution. He's the answer. He's the remedy. But Brother Dan, you don't understand. I understand completely. You don't understand. The Lord is bigger than whatever you're now after is. And you need to get your eyes upon Him. Now after. Whatever that is. He's the one who can lift you up. He's the one who knows the way. Whatever the now after is, He knows the way. If He knows the way all the time, it seems like it's common sense that I ought to just follow Him. We don't always have common sense. Not only does He know the way, He can make a way when we think there is no way. Someone says, well, there's no way that can happen. Well, you've removed the Lord from the picture. That's a problem. He's the one who's greater than any circumstance in our life. Sometimes now after presents a maze, and we don't know which way to turn. But He's the one that can guide you through the maze. He's the one who can shield you. He's the one who can carry you. He's the one who can bear the load. He's the one who can calm the storm. And sometimes He doesn't always calm the storm, but He's the one who can calm your heart in the storm. Either way, the storm becomes a non-factor. Either way. So again, whatever you insert now after, whatever you insert after it came to pass, there's the Lord. There's the Lord. And He's never less than who He is. Never. And He, in spite of my sins, in spite of my failings, in spite of stubbornness and persistence in pursuing our own ways, in spite of all of our murmurings, in spite of our slowness to believe, in spite of our unthankfulness, He still loves us. He's still merciful, still gracious, still long-suffering. He is who He is. His Word is still what it is. And we are still blessed of God as His children. It is Psalm 23:6. Now, whatever now after is, and whatever the it came to pass is, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Doesn't matter. Psalm 23:6 remains true. Whatever happens. It is Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Whatever follows now after, hear God say, be still and know that I am God. Know that. Know that. It's Ezekiel 11:16. Although yet will I be to them. Whatever comes to pass, God will be what He is, and God will be to us. So whatever after you have come from, and whatever your now is, and whatever is going to come to pass is, there is the Lord. There is the Lord. And we see from our text in Joshua, and we'll close, the Lord spake. Now after the event is mentioned, the Lord spake. Whatever your now after is, the Lord has something to say. And you'd be wise to listen to what He has to say. In the book of Judges, following now after came the children of Israel asked the Lord. They spoke to Him. And whatever your now after is, God has something to say. And whatever your now after is, you can speak to Him. Changes everything. You insert the Lord into the picture, everything changes. Pray that that would help each one of us now after. Whatever it is, look for the Lord because He's there. He's there. Look for Him. Experience Him. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us in verse of song. Let's all stand, and Ben will lead us.